So what have we proposed to replace this system? We've proposed something that the press is now saying is a mishmash. Some people in opposition are saying that. In fact, it is intended to be a unified system. It has three parts, but I consider that something like a three-legged stool. Without one of those legs, the whole thing falls apart. So we are looking at what is known as a mayor-council system with a clear separation of powers, with enhanced representation for the public and professional management. Each of these things are demands that we heard from the public in our many listening sessions. We have listened at this point to thousands of Portlanders. What are we looking at? The mayor would be the chief executive. That would be the person who runs the day-to-day business of the city. The mayor would propose and carry out policies, would propose the budget, and would have a tie-breaking vote in city council. We are very cognizant of the fact that Portlanders want checks and balances. So the mayor would propose the policy, propose budget, and have a tie-breaking vote, but would not have a veto. The mayor, as I said, would oversee the running of the city through a city administrator who would be a professional at city running. The mayor would name that city administrator as well as the police chief, but just like in our federal government, those people would have to be confirmed by our city council. The city council would move from being the people who run our bureaus to being what they should be, a legislative and representative body. They also would develop policy, but they would be the ones who legislate that policy, and they would represent our district electorate. They would amend and approve the budget, and as I've said, confirm the city administrator. And then the final person in this would be the professional city administrator who would hopefully disentangle this Gordian knot of a system we have today, appoint and oversee bureau directors, and manage operations. The city administrator would report to the mayor. There has been some stuff online that has said things like the city administrator could be fired by both the mayor or the city council. That is true, but let me explain that the city administrator could be fired at will by the mayor because that person reports to the mayor. But because we want checks and balances, and no one wants a situation where the mayor might be in cahoots with the city administrator, by a supermajority of 3/4 vote, the city council could also let go of the city administrator, but it would require a supermajority. The other aspect, the other two aspects of what we're looking at are an enhanced city council elected by district. When, as I mentioned, when this 4-person city council was developed back in 1913, we had 200,000 people. Interestingly enough, experts say 1 representative for every 50,000 people is the sweet spot you want to aim at. So they got it right in 1913. It is not right for a diverse city of 650,000 people. By the way, I should point out back in 1913, Oregon was by law not a diverse state or city. It would also make our city council accountable to and responsive to the people, not to the bureaus. We decided, rather than to have individual members in individual districts, to have 4 geographically compact districts with 3 councilors each. The reason that we did that is because we are looking for diverse representation. And given the historic makeup of the city of Portland, every time we tried to divide it into 12 districts, we saw the same groups always having a numerical advantage. And so by having 4 districts with 3 representatives each, you're going to have a much broader representation of each community. It has been shown, for example, in communities that have in Maryland, where they have both men and women. I have this number somewhere. In Maryland, for example, where they have both multi-member districts and single-member districts. In the multi-member districts, in the single-member districts, 29% of those elected are women. In the multi-member districts, 45% of those elected are women. And this would count not just for gender, but it would account for race, age, political affiliation, whether you're a renter or a homeowner. We are seeking to represent the people of Portland, not just a small subset that traditionally has been in power. These districts would be drawn by an independent citizen commission, which would be appointed in September 2023. By law, they would be equal in population. So 3 of them would be on the east side. And we are demanding that they retain communities of common interest together. And we've also added something that is not in our Oregon code, which is that those districts must be compact. So no wiggly waggly gerrymandering. They would be equitably and transparently represented by, as I said, 3 councilors each. And the other reason that we wanted 3 councilors is because, as I mentioned earlier, given the variety of very serious issues on now, that gives you a chance in each district to have one person, for example, who is more of an expert on crime, one who is focused more on traffic, one who is focused more on the trash situation, and so forth. And we foresee, but cannot force what councilors do, that they could actually form committees and better represent the multiplicity of issues that are facing each district. The third element of this 3-legged stool is that we would move to ranked choice voting. The results of ranked choice voting would more fairly reflect the voice of the entire community, instead of just 20% electing somebody or 16% electing somebody. Ranked choice voting would, in a multi-member district, satisfy up to 95% of voters would feel that someone that maybe not was their first choice, but someone they liked would be elected. It gives our voters more choice. It increases participation in the election. So why do I believe that this will pass where past efforts have failed? First of all, 13% of the Portlanders polled say our whoops, what has happened? All right, get back here. This thing has a mind of its own. 13% say our government is on the right track. Now, this measure failed, as you may know, in 2007, as well as 2002, 1966, and 1958. Actually, not this measure. They only dealt with ending the commission form of government. But to compare it with 2007, 55% back in 2007 said our government is on the right track. Today, 13% say that. We also looked deeply at why this failed in the past, particularly in 2007 and 2002. Reason number 1 is that the measure dealt only with ending the commission form of government, which is what is wanted by a lot of people in the establishment. But it did not increase electoral representation, which we have found is the top demand by Portlanders at large. In terms of the feedback, people felt that it gave too much power to the mayor. So we have created a system with strong checks and balances. And back in 2000 in particularly, it was supported by business, but failed to capture unions, civil society, or the hearts and minds of the electorate. Another reason I believe that this measure will pass is because we have replaced the whole system, focusing on equitable local representation, not just made little corrections around the edges. This is like going from the Articles of Confederation to the Constitution. Some people may be scared. They may say it's too much, but that's the only way you get a system that truly works together to bring Portlanders the representation and the government accountability that they've been asking for. We've also done extensive research on comparable cities' experience, as well as talking with the public, bureaus, unions, and civil society. I am not puffing or saying anything but the absolute truth when I say that this proposal has been built from the bottom up by Portlanders, not from the top down by politicians or interest groups. Very quickly, I'm not going to spend any time on this slide. This just shows you the amount of time and that we've spent listening to Portlanders, talking to Portlanders like yourselves. And then we've conducted polls. And this is what we found in 3 polls. The little number there says which poll it is from. Different ones ask different questions, and I'm not cherry picking, I'm just getting questions where they came in on polls. This is what we learned. 77% of the population supports complete overhaul or major governmental change. And I would point out that that was a poll conducted but not immediately released by the Portland Business Alliance. 75% believe the district representation is fairer and more accountable. 73% support in a large city council with multi-member districts. 72% support ranked choice voting. In terms of across all 3 polls, that was in fact the most popular of the measures. 68% support getting a city manager or city administrator. And the last thing I want to share, and this is for those folks out there who say that it's too complicated, it should be split into different measures. When we did polling, and it didn't matter which poll, we found the same thing, that as we turned it into a unified proposal, it became more popular. In one of the polls, FM3 Research, when they asked, would you support a mayor-council form, 51% of those polled said yes. When they said, what about a mayor-council form with ranked choice voting, 56% said yes. And when they said, what about a mayor-council form with ranked choice voting and a bigger district-based council, 59% said yes. So what we are seeing is that people want something that is comprehensive, that makes sense, and that gives them something that is an improvement on what they're seeing today. Thank you very much, and I'm now happy to entertain any questions or comments that you have.